I grew up in a quiet house on Alder Lane, the kind of place that always smelled like fresh paint in spring and warm bread in winter. My grandparents, Grandpa George and Grandma Rose, filled it with small routines that made life feel safe: tea at the same hour, a blanket folded just right on the sofa, and the porch light turned on before sunset. When Grandma Rose passed, Grandpa George became more serious, but he never stopped treating me like I belonged there. He used to say a home isn't just wood and nails, it's a promise you keep for the people you love. I carried that sentence with me, especially when I started traveling for work between Europe and America. My dad, Michael, never liked how close I was to my grandparents. He didn't say it directly, but I could feel it in the way he watched Grandpa George, like he was counting days instead of sharing time. Things got worse when he married my stepmom, Vanessa. Vanessa had a smooth voice and a neat smile, but something about her always felt measured, like she was weighing what every person in the room was worth. She moved through the house like it was already hers, adjusting curtains, replacing little things, and acting like she was doing everyone a favor by improving the place. Then there was my stepsister, Brianna. She was loud in a way that demanded attention, and she collected sympathy like it was a hobby. If she didn't get her way, she could turn on tears so fast it almost looked like a talent. She liked expensive things, talked about money like it was air, and treated no as if it was rude. Still, I tried to stay polite. I told myself I could keep my distance, keep my peace, and focus on my life. I paid the bills, kept the house maintained, and visited Grandpa George as often as I could. One evening, after a long trip, Dad texted me, "We need to talk. It's important." I walked into the kitchen and saw them already waiting, Vanessa sitting straight at the table, Brianna leaning back with her phone in hand, and Dad standing like he was ready to deliver a speech. Vanessa spoke first, calm and sweet. "Brianna is pregnant," she said, watching my face carefully. Dad nodded, and Brianna pressed a hand to her stomach like she expected applause. Vanessa leaned forward, still smiling. "We've decided Brianna needs this house," she said, as if she were announcing dinner plans. "You can find somewhere else." For a second, I honestly thought I'd heard wrong. Then I looked at my dad, expecting him to correct her. He didn't. He just stared at me like my answer was already supposed to be yes. When I said no, it didn't come out dramatic or loud. It was calm, almost quiet, like I was placing a cup down on a table and refusing to let anyone knock it over. For a moment, the room froze. Dad's face tightened, Vanessa's smile stayed in place but turned thin, and Brianna's eyes widened like she couldn't believe the word existed. It was strange, seeing them act like I'd broken some rule just by standing up for myself in my own kitchen. Dad tried first, using that careful voice he saves for strangers and bosses, the one that pretends he's being fair. "Listen," he said, rubbing his forehead like I was giving him a headache, "you're hardly here. You travel between Europe and America all the time. Brianna needs stability. She's starting a family." He made it sound like he was making a smart, kind decision, as if I should be proud of him for offering my home to someone else. I looked at him and felt something heavy settle in my chest. "This isn't your choice," I said. "The house is in my name. Grandpa George made sure of that. You can't just decide to hand it over like it's a jacket you don't wear anymore." I expected him to be embarrassed, even a little. Instead, he stared at me with that stubborn look I remember from childhood, the one that says he wants to win more than he wants to be right. Vanessa slid into the conversation like she was stepping onto a stage. "We're family," she said softly. "Families sacrifice for each other." She tilted her head, pretending to be gentle. "You're young. You can rent somewhere. Brianna is pregnant. Think about the baby." Her voice had that polished sweetness that makes everything sound reasonable, but her eyes were sharp, like she was checking how much pressure it would take to crack me. Right on cue, Brianna started to sniff and blink fast. "So you want me to be homeless?" she asked, her voice shaking like she was in a movie. She rested her hand on her stomach again and looked at me like I was some villain. "You don't get it. I'm going to be a mother. I deserve a safe home." The word deserve hung in the air like a bad smell. I took a slow breath and kept my voice steady. "I don't want you homeless," I said. "I want you to live in a place you pay for. I'm not giving away my house because you decided you want it." My hands were trembling under the table, but I refused to show it. The harder they pushed, the more I understood that if I gave in now, I'd be giving in forever. Dad's patience snapped like a rubber band stretched too far. "You're being selfish," he said, louder now. After everything I've done, you're going to treat your own sister like this.
He said sister as if the word could rewrite my life.
As if calling her that would erase the way Brianna had always looked at me, like I was standing in her way. She's not my sister, I replied, and the truth came out sharp without me meaning it to. And even if she was, this still wouldn't be okay. Dad stepped closer, and for a second I saw anger flicker in him, real anger, not just frustration.
Vanessa placed a hand on his arm, calming him the way you calm a dog that might bite.
Then she looked at me again, still polite, still cold.
This is going to get messy, Vanessa said. You don't want that. It wasn't advice. It was a warning.
2 days later, it got messy exactly the way she promised. I'd gone out for a short trip, a simple overnight work thing, nothing unusual. When I came back, my key wouldn't turn. At first I thought the lock was jammed. Then I looked closer and realized it wasn't the same lock. The metal was shiny and new, like someone had installed it with pride.
My stomach dropped. I tried the back door, same thing.
I knocked, hard, and heard movement inside, but no one opened. I stepped back on the porch, my breath coming out fast, and I felt that hot rush of disbelief.
This was my house. My name. My bills. My family history. And they had locked me out like I was a stranger who didn't belong. I called Dad. It rang until voicemail. I called again. Voicemail.
Then I called Vanessa. She picked up on the second ring, as if she'd been waiting for it. "Oh," she said, sounding almost cheerful, "you're back. What did you do?" I asked, and my voice shook despite my best effort. "We made a decision," she said smoothly.
"It will be easier if you don't fight it. Brianna is resting. She doesn't need stress."
I could hear faint voices behind her, like they were all in the living room together, comfortable, settled, like I didn't exist. "You changed the locks," I said, and the words tasted bitter.
"You locked me out of my own home." Vanessa sighed like I was being dramatic. "You'll calm down," she said. "This is for the best."
I stared at the door, the same door Grandpa George used to repaint every few years because he loved keeping the house looking cared for. I felt anger rise, but underneath it was something else, clarity.
A sharp, clean understanding that they weren't confused. They weren't mistaken. They were choosing to take.
"Wrong," I said, my voice steady now. "This is going to be for the best, for me."
Then I hung up. That night I stayed with my friend Elena, who lived nearby. She didn't ask 1,000 questions.
She just gave me a blanket, handed me a mug of tea, and sat with me while I stared at the wall trying to understand how my own father could do something so low.
In the morning, I made calls. Not emotional calls. Not begging calls. Practical ones.
I found a lawyer named Daniel, and when he asked me to explain what happened, I told him everything, from the dinner table decision to the new locks on my front door.
Daniel didn't gasp or act shocked.
He listened, then said one sentence that felt like a rope thrown to someone drowning. "If the property is in your name," he said, "they can't do this.
Not legally. Not at all."
And in that moment, I realized I wasn't trapped. I was just standing at the start of a fight I didn't ask for, but I was finally ready to win. Daniel moved fast, and I learned something important in those first few days. People like Vanessa count on you being too shocked to act. They count on your fear, your confusion, your hope that if you stay polite it will magically fix itself.
Daniel didn't operate on hope. He operated on facts.
He asked for the deed, the bills, the messages, and every detail of the lock change.
I sent everything.
Within hours he had drafted a formal letter, the kind that doesn't yell but still hits like a hammer. It stated clearly that the house was mine, that I had been illegally locked out, and that if they didn't return access immediately, we would escalate. When I went back to Alder Lane with Elena beside me, it felt unreal, like walking into a dream where your own life has been rearranged.
We didn't bang on the door this time.
Daniel had told me not to argue, not to negotiate, and definitely not to step inside alone if things felt unsafe.
We waited.
After a few minutes, the door opened and Dad stood there, eyes tired, shoulders tense. Behind him I saw Vanessa's silhouette, straight posture, crossed arms. Brianna was on the couch, blanket over her legs like she was the queen of the place.
Dad didn't apologize. He didn't even ask how I was. He held out the keys with a stiff hand.
"Here," he said, like he was doing me a favor. Vanessa stayed silent, but she looked at me with a little twist at the corner of her mouth, like she was thinking, this isn't over.
I took the keys without speaking. I didn't want to fight at the doorway. I wanted my house back.
They left later that afternoon, but not before Vanessa walked through the living room slowly, running her fingers along the back of the sofa as if she was saying goodbye to something she believed belonged to her. Brianna lingered too, pouting, whispering to Dad like she was reminding him of a promise. I watched them go, and even though the house was quiet again, I didn't feel calm. I felt alert, like an animal that knows the trap is gone but the hunter is still nearby. That evening I called Grandpa George. I hadn't planned to tell him right away. I didn't want to stress him, and I hated the idea of dragging him into more family drama. But he heard something in my voice before I even said a full sentence. "What happened?" he asked.
Not "Are you okay?"
Not "Did you fix it?" Just what happened, like he already knew it was serious.
So I told him.
I described the dinner, the decision, the way Vanessa spoke like she was reading a script. I told him about Brianna's crying, Dad's anger, and the locks, how I stood on the porch holding a key that didn't work anymore. I tried to keep it simple, but my voice cracked anyway. Grandpa George didn't interrupt once. When I finished, the line went quiet for a long time. Then he spoke, and his voice was steady in a way that made my stomach twist. "Your father forgot what a home is," he said. "And he forgot what it means to protect his own child."
He wasn't shouting. That was what scared me. Grandpa George only got truly calm when he was truly done.
A week later, Grandpa George asked me to visit him. When I arrived, his house smelled like the same tea he always drank, but the mood was different. His eyes were tired, not weak, just tired in the way someone looks when they've carried something for too long.
He gestured for me to sit. "They are coming," he said.
"Your father, Vanessa, and Brianna. I want you here, but you don't have to speak unless you want to."
Part of me wanted to leave. I didn't want another scene.
I didn't want to watch Dad twist the truth or hear Vanessa's fake kindness. But another part of me wanted to see it with my own eyes, like proof.
So I stayed.
They arrived together, as if they needed to present a united front. Dad tried to look confident, but he kept adjusting his sleeves.
Vanessa walked in like she owned the room.
Brianna waddled slightly and made a show of her pregnancy, sighing heavily as she sat down.
She didn't even greet Grandpa George properly.
She just started with, "This whole thing has been so stressful."
Grandpa George didn't respond to that. He looked straight at Dad.
"Michael," he said, using my dad's full name the way he used to when Dad was young and in trouble. "Explain."
Dad launched into it like he'd rehearsed.
He talked about helping Brianna, about keeping the house in the family, about how hard it is for young mothers.
He left out the locks. He left out the threats. He made it sound like I'd thrown a tantrum because I didn't want to share.
Vanessa added her own lines, soft voice, sad eyes. "We just thought we could find a solution," she said. "We didn't realize it would turn into something so ugly." Then she looked at me briefly, like she wanted Grandpa George to believe I was the one who made it ugly.
Brianna started crying again.
"I'm pregnant," she said, as if the words were a shield. "I need security.
I can't be moving around.
The baby needs a real home." She glanced at Grandpa George like she was waiting for him to fold, like older people always do when someone cries. But Grandpa George didn't fold. He watched them the same way he used to watch storms roll in across an open field, calm, focused, ready. Then he asked Dad one simple question. "Did you change the locks?" Dad blinked. "Well," Vanessa thought. "Answer," Grandpa George said, voice firm. Dad's face went pale. "Yes," he admitted. "But it was temporary." Grandpa George leaned forward slightly, and the room felt smaller. "You locked my grandchild out of their own home," he said. "A home that I built my life around. A home I protected." He paused, letting the words sink in. "And you did it for what? So your wife and her daughter could take what isn't theirs." Vanessa opened her mouth to speak, but Grandpa George raised his hand. "No," he said. "I'm done listening." Dad tried to recover. "Dad, please, you don't understand." "I understand perfectly," Grandpa George cut in. "I understand that you have become a man who takes instead of a man who provides. I understand that you tried to steal peace from your own child." His eyes moved to Vanessa. "And you," he said, "you walked into this family like it was a store, looking for what you could carry out." Vanessa's face tightened, but she stayed quiet. Then Grandpa George turned to Brianna. "Pregnancy is not a prize," he said. "And it is not an excuse to bully people." Brianna's crying stopped like someone had flipped a switch. The silence that followed was heavy.
Dad looked like he might beg. Vanessa looked like she might explode. Brianna looked angry, not sad.
And Grandpa George delivered the final blow, clear as daylight. "Michael," he said, "you are not entitled to my legacy. You have earned your place outside of it." He stood up, and even though he was older, the room seemed to stand with him. "Leave." They left, one by one, and the air felt cleaner after the door closed. I sat there shaking, not from fear this time, but from realizing something hard and true. Grandpa George had seen them clearly, and he had chosen me. When we were alone, he reached across the table and squeezed my hand. "You did the right thing," he said softly. "You kept the promise of that house." Then he looked at me with tired love and said, "Now I'll keep mine." The weeks after Grandpa George's decision felt strange, like the air had changed pressure and my body didn't know how to breathe in it yet. The house on Alder Lane was quiet again, but it wasn't the easy quiet from before.
It was a watchful quiet.
I double-checked the locks, added a small camera near the porch, and kept Daniel's number saved at the top of my phone. I went back and forth between Europe and America for work, but I stopped pretending distance would keep trouble away.
Trouble had already learned my address.
Grandpa George's health dipped not long after that meeting. He didn't become fragile overnight, but the spark that carried him through everything seemed to dim.
I visited as often as I could.
Sometimes we talked about ordinary things, weather, books, the way the neighborhood had changed. Other times he'd hold my hand and say nothing at all, as if words weren't necessary anymore. On my last visit, he looked at me and said, "Whatever happens next, remember this, you were never wrong for protecting your own life." I nodded, trying not to cry, and he gave me a small smile like he already knew I would. When Grandpa George passed, it happened quietly. No dramatic scene, no big warning. One day he was there, and then he wasn't, and the world kept moving like it hadn't lost anything at all.
The funeral was simple.
People said kind things.
Some meant them. Some just liked the sound of their own sympathy.
Dad showed up late, dressed neatly, face stiff like he was trying to look wounded without looking guilty. Vanessa came too. Black outfit, perfect hair, eyes dry. Brianna arrived last, holding her belly and scanning the room like she was checking who was watching.
I didn't speak to them. I didn't need to.
They hovered near groups of people, whispering, telling stories with careful edits. I heard Dad say, "Families go through misunderstandings," like he was talking about spilled coffee. I heard Vanessa say, "We all loved him so much," as if love was something you could claim just because you showed up. Brianna dabbed at her eyes and told a stranger, "I'm pregnant and it's been so hard," like she was the main character even at someone else's goodbye. A few days after the funeral, Daniel asked me to come into his office. The room smelled like paper and clean wood, and everything about it felt steady, which I needed.
He didn't waste time.
He slid a folder across the desk and said, "This is the final will and the distribution documents."
My hands were cold as I opened it.
Numbers blurred for a second, then came into focus like a punch to the chest. Grandpa George and Grandma Rose had left me $11 million. I stared at the page, not feeling rich, not feeling lucky, just feeling the weight of it.
It wasn't a lottery win.
It was a message. It was my grandparents saying, "Even after everything, we saw you.
We trusted you."
Daniel explained the details in a calm voice, how the assets were structured, how the house remained mine, how the inheritance was legal and clear. Then he said the sentence that made the room go very quiet. "Your father is not included.
Vanessa is not included.
Brianna is not included."
I swallowed hard.
"So, that's it?"
I asked. Daniel nodded. "That's it.
The will is solid."
It didn't take long for them to find out.
It never does.
Money travels faster than truth. The first call came the next morning. Dad's name flashed on my phone.
For a second, I just watched it ring like it was a strange animal I didn't want to touch. Then I answered, because part of me wanted to hear exactly what he'd say now. His voice sounded different, soft, almost shaky.
"Hey," he said.
"Can we talk?" I leaned back against the kitchen counter and looked around the house, the same place he'd tried to push me out of.
"We're talking," I replied. He cleared his throat.
"I've been thinking a lot.
About everything.
I made mistakes."
He paused like he expected me to jump in and comfort him. When I didn't, he continued. "I'm still your father."
In the background, I heard a whisper, "Vanessa," sharp and quick. Then Brianna's voice, irritated, saying something I couldn't fully make out.
Dad lowered his voice even more.
You know, this family, it shouldn't be broken like this.
Grandpa wouldn't want that.
That line almost made me laugh, but it didn't feel funny.
It felt disgusting. Grandpa George had been clear. Dad was the one who ignored him when it mattered.
You didn't call me when you changed my locks, I said evenly.
You didn't call me to apologize. You didn't call me at all until now. Dad let out a breath.
I didn't think he would. He stopped himself, but it was too late.
The truth slipped out on its own.
You didn't think Grandpa George would cut you off. I finished for him. That's why you're calling. He went silent, and in that silence I could almost hear him deciding which version of himself to wear. Then he tried a new angle, softer, sadder.
I was under pressure, he said. Vanessa was stressed. Brianna is pregnant.
I just wanted peace. I stared at the family photos on the wall. Grandpa George smiling in his garden, Grandma Rose holding a plate of cookies, me standing between them, younger, safer.
You didn't want peace, I said.
You wanted me to give up my home so your wife could play hero and your stepdaughter could play victim.
That's not fair, Dad whispered. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't insult him. I just spoke like someone who had finally stopped hoping.
What wasn't fair was you trying to take my house, I said. What wasn't fair was you letting Vanessa treat me like a problem to remove. What wasn't fair was you choosing them over me and calling it family. I heard Vanessa in the background again, louder now, angry.
Dad tried to hush her.
The whole thing sounded messy. And for once, it wasn't my mess. Please, Dad said, voice cracking. We can fix this.
We can start over.
Maybe we can meet, talk about arrangements. He said arrangements like he was trying to sound careful, but I heard what he meant.
He meant money. He meant access. He meant give us something.
I took a slow breath, feeling the solid ground under me, the way Grandpa George wanted.
No, I said, simple and final. I'm keeping the house.
I'm keeping the inheritance. And I'm keeping my peace. Dad made a small sound, like a wounded animal. I didn't stay on the line to listen to him crawl. I ended the call, set my phone down, and stood in the quiet kitchen. The silence didn't feel empty anymore. It felt protected. Outside, the porch light flickered once, then steadied, as if the house itself was settling back into the truth.
They tried to push me out of my own life, but I stayed.
And this time, I wasn't just surviving in my home, I was finally living in it.